Welcome back. We were discussing about whether there is actually a need for merger of both the revenue board. So, sir, we were talking about it. So, what is your take on this? Whether India really needs to go for this kind of merger of boards?
Look, I am very clear on this, that merger is neither viable nor desirable in the Indian context. I think the idea came from UK and maybe some other countries. But you see the tax base, difference in tax base. How many taxpayers in India, both on direct taxes and indirect taxes? And you can't compare it with the UK. Secondly, one fundamental difference, indirect taxes are transaction-based tax, whereas the income tax over a year assessment is there. And then I don't see this thing it will improve anyway, it will add value to it. I'll tell you, I mean, I remember when I was chairman during that time, also a proposal had come. And the finance minister, the then finance minister, Mr. Pranab Mukherjee, called both of us, Chairman CBDT and me. And we gave our views. There was complete unanimity between the two boards that there's no cause for any merger. But of course, yes, there must be a lot of mutual discussion, exchange of ideas, exchange of data. And one must realize that the taxation system in UK or say other developed countries, they're all settled over a period of time. In India, it is evolving. Now here, excise services, suddenly we are talking about GST, a complete game changer. So at this time, it's not worthwhile to go for a change that the two boards should be merged.
So, I mean, sir, on this point, of course, I will take sir's view also. Since you touched GST point, sir, I will take a quick take on this also. That rather than focusing on merger, according to you, it should have been, they should have focused more on the GST tax administration side, which appears to be a miss in this report.
Since you raised this issue, I must say that I'm rather disappointed that on GST, there has not been many recommendation. You see, it is known to everybody that GST is coming. Prime Minister, Finance Minister, Prime Minister had taken a meeting sometime in September, October, and then the date was fixed. It came in the newspaper that 1st April 2016, at that time just about more than a year only. And so I expected, because the committee had another 4 or 5 months of that. I thought that there will be a lot of things. I was keenly waiting that we'll see something over there. But there's a lot of issues on GST. But I find only some passing reference while talking about certain issues like, impact assessment, a tool for decision making, what the Australian Tax Office has done. But that is only a regulatory assessment statement. They're talking about the reduce the compliance impact and all. Then there is again a reference in the widening of base, that in GST the base will be widened. But again, they're taking not on the administrative reforms. Now, certain aspects where I expected this TARC to give their considered view is the restructuring of tax administrations for the CGST and SGST, central GST and state GST. Like, for example, in state of Maharashtra, there would be at least 20 commissioners who are now handling, at least maybe more, handling the executive commissioners, handling your excise and service tax. And you know how many commercial tax officers from the state side? Only one commissioner. So they are handling VAT only. Of course, workload is much less than service tax and central excise. But see the difference. So when the GST comes, the workload will be the same because we are having the parallel system. So how this will be harmonized? I think they are in the...
Right, sir. So we will go back to the merger point. So
yes. Sir. See, the two boards were together as Central Board of Revenue. I mean, in our lifetime, they were separated only in 1963. Right. There were some reasons why they were separated. Is anybody saying that the reasons for which they were separated are no more valid today? We don't know. And then let's have clarity. Why do we want merger of two boards? Let's have clarity on this and then decide what kind of merger. Because what the Commission is saying, merger of only at the level of board, but not at the level of field. Right. Okay. So what will you have in future if the two boards are merged? There will be one chairman and a board comprising of something like 16 or maybe even more members. Right. It is a problem in managing a board with 6 or 7 members today, which is dealing with one particular, area of taxation. Right. What will be the situation when you have 16 members, 16 or 17 members and that kind of thing? So it will be something like one common head with 2 different bodies. Right. Down the stream, the systems will remain. This is virtually the same way in which the current LTUs are functioning. The Chief Commissioner of LTU is common, but all functional units down below are separate. So nothing much is being achieved. Right. Now, the primary, focus which the Commission probably has is coordination between the policies of the two boards. Right. Now, the time, there was once upon a time for which when you need to put two people together on the same body or in the same organization for them to coordinate. Today, in the age of ICT, when data can be freely transferred, looked at, is what we need is coordination in terms of data, exchange of data, good systems which can exchange data, decisions can be taken in a common manner, all those kind of things. So, I mean, it is completely unviable. And then three other points that I would like to highlight. First of all, the organizational character of both the departments is completely different. Excise and customs are, to a certain extent, a police kind of an organization. Income tax has been historically more civil and quasi-judicial and those kind of, their organizational characters are different. The other point is that, as Mr. Majumdar was just now saying, excise side will be undergoing a huge change about which they are virtually entering into an uncharted territory. They will themselves be in a great deal of flux over next 2-3 years when they move from the current dispensation to GST system. Now, at this time, to talk about the merger of two boards will cause great deal of dislocation and confusion. I don't think it's a good idea at this point.
So as the sir was talking about the merger, apart from the merger, the two other structures and the new bodies which the Commission has suggested is, one is the Tax Council, to be headed by the Chief Economic Advisor, and another is a TPA, the Tax Policy Analysis, where he is talking about the merger of TPL and TRU, sir.
The proposal for tax policy analysis wing follows from the proposal for the merger of the CBDT and CBEC, because according to the Commission, and which perhaps is also a fact, the two boards work in different silos. They don't talk to each other. There is no synergy in the working of the two boards. So, the basic idea of the eventual merger, because the Commission is now proposing a merger of certain administrative aspects and to be followed by actual merger of the two boards in 10 years' time. One of the areas where they thought that there could be some synergy is the area of tax policy analysis. There is some criticism of the current working of the TPL, he doesn't talk about separately of TPL and TRU, but the tax policy wing of the two boards. Again, these are handled by two divisions, two units who work in silos. There is criticism about the working of the TPL. I am talking of TPL because he says that the tax policy design is not based on proper analysis, and there is no interdisciplinary inputs for formulation of the tax policy. There is no data analysis that is done in the tax policy division. There is no macro fiscal modeling that is done in the tax policy division. So, according to the proposal, economics has to be at the heart of tax policy. To a certain extent, I agree with the shortcomings that have been pointed out by the Commission. Right. There is a scope of improvement for us in working in these areas. But the Commission itself has pointed out that the total number of persons that are working in the TPL and TRU, altogether 20 persons, they do the work of about 400 persons, which the KAI Center of the UK HMRC is doing. And he is suggesting a complement of 200 persons to be working in the joint TPA, which will comprise 40 tax officers, 60 economists, 60 statisticians, 20 lawyers who are experts in taxation law and 20 experts, lawyers who are experts in drafting, having a specialized training. So it is a elaborate proposal. Again, the centrality of economics to tax policy is to be ensured by having a tax council which will be headed by the chief economic advisor, because economics is supposed to be the central to tax policy. And then the problem is that in the current scheme of things, the chief economic advisor doesn't really have any stake in revenue. So I am not sure whether the chief economic advisor will be the right person to head that council. And he is also proposing chief economists for both the boards, the CBDT and CBEC. So that is in essence the proposal.
That means Revenue Secretary to be replaced by Chief Economic Advisor.
It's kind of that, because
Chairman will be reporting to the Chief Economic Advisor.
What the proposal says is that the proposal for any new legislation or whatever should be moved by the in-file has to be moved by the Chief Economic Advisor. So, so the ownership in that case
lies
perhaps
with
will be
the
Chief
CE.
Economic Advisor.
So what is your take on these aspects of this?
I think the fact is that coordination is necessary. Even today it happens in budget making. I mean, neither CBDT nor CBEC can claim expertise over everything. And the finance minister has to coordinate at some place. Therefore, in the existing structure also, TRU and TPL, they are subjected to coordination either with the chief economic advisor or with the finance secretary or revenue secretary, so that a holistic view is taken. Is making an important point that tax policies do have a strong impact on the economic policy of the country, and therefore the revenue officials, they are not the right persons to make the tax policies unless it is also filtered and scrutinized by the economist or by the other persons whose views really matter on this. So from that point of view, what he is suggesting that in the existing scenario, TRU is also coordinating with the economic division of the Ministry of Finance. TPL is also coordinating, and at the apex level when the decisions are taken, then there is finance secretary, there is chief economic advisor, there is expenditure secretary. So at that level the coordination is done. But he is suggesting a framework in which at the ground level also, when the policies are made, there has to be some input from the others also, from the economists or from the lawyers or from the experts, so that the policy which is ultimately generated, it results into a better kind of a policy. So maybe today it may not be feasible, maybe it is so, but then it has a lot to do with the post of revenue secretary, because if the revenue secretary goes, then there is a sense in having this kind of a structure, because at present revenue secretary is coordinating on behalf of CBDT and CBEC. So therefore ultimately he is suggesting that because tax policies are going to have a serious impact on the economic policy, so the right person is an economist to coordinate. I mean, that is the thrust according to me in the Commission's recommendation, that the right person is not a generalist who is an IAS. The right person is not a revenue official whose job is basically, who is professionally trained to be a revenue official. The right person in the context of the need of the situation which is going to arise is the economist. So it is in that context that it does make sense. Maybe not today, but after some time it does make sense.
Right, sir. So now, sir, we will move to this HR side, sir. You know, good number of suggestions have been made, sir, with respect to the HR, the people, the function. And there, sir, of course, there are lots of things where, you know, he has also touched about transfer policy, you know, something, you know, which both the boards find it very close to their heart. But we will touch at 2 points, in fact. One is this, he is talking about the lateral entry of experts in key roles. so far as the HR aspect is concerned. He is suggesting that maybe 5 years contract could be given to some of the HR professionals from the market who could be inducted. And then, sir, then of course, the kind of impact it will have. So, do you really think that this lateral entry system is going to improve the HR side of the?
No, the suggestion of lateral entry is not only for HR, it is for specialized functions, for all kinds of specialized functions.
Right,
It's
All
not
these-
not
all
limited
these,
to HR.
Right, sir, for other aspect also.
But
yes,
as part of HR policy, the Commission is suggesting that there should be a policy of lateral entry. Because again, I mean, this is an issue which is linked to overall civil service structure. Certainly, induction of ideas and specialization from outside the government into government at certain level is desirable, and it does make a difference. Now, question is that what kind of experts you would like to come and what kinds of experts will come to government at the salaries at the which are available. Now, I mean, I have personal experience of dealing with systems matter, where we had very limited resources and expertise on the systems and computer side, and we were not able to hire people from market because experts in those areas, emerging technologies and all that, they are not willing to come to government. And so, I mean, there is a case for this, but
I mean, what is your experience of that the lateral entry thing? Is it really required at maybe with some directorates?
I will go by what Khansa has said, that lateral entry can be considered in a very specialized job like that in system related matters, and where you will not get, because to put it bluntly, they will not come for the salary that the government will offer. They will be getting much more in the IT sector. So that was one area perhaps we thought. And otherwise, you see, the lateral economics are all lateral entry. And as Rustagi Sahab explained, in the tax policy and all those things, our officers, TRU and TPL officers, they do interact with the chief economic advisor in the economic division. And most of them, they come from lateral entries already. Like now, Dr. Arvind Subramanian is there, before that Dr. Kaushik Basu was there. They're all with the vast experience of the... So lateral entry on that there. But what he's saying is that in the administration. Now, there's a difference. IRS Customs Excise and IRS Income Tax, both are revenue service. We are not generalists, we are experts. If somebody says that we are not experts, I will not accept it. Because we are doing only tax collection by virtue of 30-35 years when we reach the board level, and even during that time we have worked, we developed some domain expertise. And so you can't say that we don't have expertise on that. So I would go by what Mr.
So one point, of course, I think he makes a valid point, not for lateral entry, but for the selection of members and chairman of the board. It's mostly based on seniority. So there, I agree that seniority always doesn't reflect merit. So he is suggesting that there should be some kind of filtering at some stage, so that those meritorious people can move up the ladder.
No, that is accepted fact, sir.
I think one important recommendation he is making is this rule
56J also, yes sir. Yes, sir.
He is
Yes,
making that recommendation.
yes, sir. He has said that this
it
provision should be
used
effectively utilized.
more often. It should be used.
Yes, so weeding out
That will
officers
take care of
doubtful
You see, integrity of the revenue officials is a very important aspect. It is the fulcrum of efficient tax administration in any country. The taxpayers must believe that the tax officials are honest by and large, and the tax system is an efficient tax system. So in that context, this recommendation is extremely important. It was used long back when some members of the board were also expelled from service by invoking this provision. But he is making it, I think, to be used quite frequently, almost
Yes,
every
he's
year.
saying that, yes.
You have to review the officers, and then you have to find out that which officers should be shunted out of the
He's
service.
suggesting after 20 years,
After
they should be
20 years,
reviewed.
that compulsory
Maybe there
exercise
should be a
has to be
mechanism
done.
to start invoking this. This is one aspect.
see, I happened to be working in the Directorate of Vigilance in 1987 to 92, which was a time when this major exercise under FR 56J was undertaken, and that led to compulsory retirement of something like 50 commissioners on the income tax side. I'm not aware of the number on the other side, but fairly large number on that side. Now, that led to two things. One, in the course of time, virtually all those 56J orders were reversed by some court or the other. Each one, not one of them was ultimately sustained after a litigation of something like 7-8 years. Two, it created, a kind of, fear, terror in the department. A lot of personal animosities were taken out by way of 56J. So while I completely agree with what Mr. Rustagi was saying about need for, making sure that tax officers are upright, honest, etc., etc. 56J has, experience has shown that it has not worked. There has to be something else which has to be done. And this system of, promotion of people virtually on a conveyor belt system where everybody in terms of seniority keeps on getting promoted right up to the board, that is completely undesirable. We must have a good kind of filtering at every stage, certainly at the stage of Chief Commissioner and Principal Chief Commissioner and above, certainly at that level.
Right, sir. So maybe rather than focusing on 56J, the commission would have done better by coming up with a new system, perhaps. Yes. More transparent, rather than, because it has
56J has not given the result. And by the way, after that big exercise of 1980s, late 80s, it was given up. It has not happened thereafter.
It has not happened, sir. Absolutely. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He's reminding that you should use it.
Correct, sir. Correct. So now, sir, we will move from administration to, since we are talking about evolving a developing system, we will go to system only, sir. And there, sir, he is talking about this data storage, where he is talking about creating SPB for developing a portal where, the access of information, data, etc. can really be facilitated, sir. So this SPB model again, sir, we have SPB model for the GST, and now again he is suggesting another SPB model.
See, SPV by itself is neither an end nor an objective. SPV is a means to an end. Right. So first, let us be clear about what is our objective. The objective is that data being collected by different organizations which are relevant to each other must be able to reach the other organization and utilized. Right. Now, certainly that's an absolutely desirable objective. The data structures of both the sides should be common, and I will not go for such a huge thing in first step. CBDT, CBEC, FIU, CIB, RBI, SEBI. This is asking for the moon in the first step. We can certainly talk about data integration of the two boards which are being collected and automatic exchange of the data between the two, where, when an officer on the income tax side wants to look at the data on the other side, he should be able to do it, and vice versa. So that is beyond question, no doubt about it. And a lot of things on that front has happened. But historically, since both the system side developed on their own, there is some amount of mismatch and data structure. But then once the data warehousing projects come up, I think that will be addressed. Just a small little thing that I wanted to convey. I was asked to chair a committee on reform of CEIB, just about 3 years ago, 2011, I think. And there I had, in that report, which of course never got implemented, I had suggested a hub and spoke model of integration of data from 4 or 5 intelligence agencies amongst themselves, which is a complete need of our. In fact, we are missing huge amount of revenue by not integrating that kind of data. Just one more, but a small little point clarification. That GSTN that was suggested for GST network, it was supposed to be, SPV was supposed to be a private company with public purpose. If you read that report, they have coined this phrase, a private company with public purpose. It will be private in the sense that government will not have the majority shareholding, but it will not be, listed on the stock exchange. Its shares will not be transferable, etc., etc.
Section 25 company.
It requires more deliberation.
Absolutely, sir. So on this note, we will wrap up this discussion on the part 1 of the TARC report, which is very exhaustive. It has many more chapters, and the part 2, part 3, part 4, perhaps in future we will have more discussions. But this was, there are many takeaways also for the policymakers, for the finance minister, who apparently told in the parliament in his budget speech that the government is at various advanced stage of examining those recommendations. So the key thing is that the panelists have found that there is nothing wrong about the objective, but the methods suggested to achieve those objectives are perhaps debatable, perhaps not viable, perhaps method in details are not available. It has been, certain points have been only touched upon, very loosely referred to, but nobody has gone deeper into it. So probably the government will have to again look into all these aspects. Probably both the boards will look into it, and nobody doubts that ultimately integration of either TPL or TRU or both the boards, etc., if it is going to work well for the tax administration and the taxpayer services, it's a welcome relief for the taxpayers if there is a major development. But those goals are there, both the boards are working in that directions. There are flaws in some of the schemes, some of the methods, etc., but those are being overcome, of course, with the present system also. So on this note, let me thank all the panelists.
I think if I may summarize.
Please, sir.
His recommendation is actually a reform from landline to smartphone. So
Right,
it has to be seen in that.
So as rightly said that, the recommendations by this TARC commission is, from landline to smartphone. So that means a lot of distance has to be covered, and there are many stages involved. It cannot be Hanuman jump, So keeping in mind all those aspects, let me thank for this wonderful, insightful thoughts, sir, and thank you for watching us.